This is actually Halloween when I'm filming this, and I'd like to note, I am actually dressed up. I've got like my Barbie shirt on. I'm K Barbie, which by the way, I had a better Barbie getup. I posted on my Instagram, so definitely follow me over there because my content's a little bit different over there and I'm trying to build my Instagram up again, so definitely go give me a follow if you don't mind. So it is the end of the month, so I'm doing a monthly reading wrap up. I'm gonna discuss the books that I read for the month of October, which is only 4 books, but I consider a book a week is pretty decent pacing, so let's just go ahead and get into what I read this month. By the way, do you guys remember how I started off the month with a TBR? It's exactly why I don't do them, because I never follow my own TBRs. I always just spontaneously pick books when I'm picking up a new book to read. No surprise there for me. Starting off with the only physical book that I have this month, which is Johnny Got His Gun by Dalton Trumbo. I have been working on a video where I read the most suggested books or books to read in a lifetime that Reddit suggested, and this was one of them. This book was very dark and hard to read at times. It actually took me quite a bit to get through this, despite this being a pretty short book. There's only like 240 pages in it, and it took me like 2 months to read, almost to the exact day. And it's just because I really had to pace myself when reading this because I really wanted to not only absorb the content matter, but again, it was just a dark and heavy read. If you guys have read this book or you know what the content of this book is about, it's essentially someone who is heavily affected by war. He is injured to the highest degree. Essentially, he has lost all of his bodily functionality and his independence. He has no more senses because a bomb basically went off and he lost his whole face, his eyes, his nose, his mouth, his hearing. He also lost his limbs, and there's no pretty way to put it. It's just basically the realization that he was a cog in the machine that the war is, or war in general is, and he really had no purpose being there in the first place when he is like sitting back and reflecting on the choices that he made to get to that point, how he really wasn't the one that really made those decisions. So I would definitely see why this is a book to read in your lifetime at some point. Like I said, it's definitely heavy and be mentally prepared for the subject matter in this, but I feel like that's pretty a common theme when it comes to any type of war-related book. And this book in particular was a little bit different because it was actually one of the few books written in between the World Wars, so between World War I and World War II. So when this book was written, obviously, he had no insight into World War II and all of the other atrocities that came along with that. So I would definitely recommend. I did kind of mark this because I feel like this is a very visceral description and indicator of how this book reads. An equation: 40,000 dead young men, 3,000 tons of bone and flesh, 124,000 pounds of brain matter, 50,000 gallons of blood, 1,840,000 years of life that will never be lived, 100,000 children who will never be born. So, very good book, but again, it's hard to get through, at least I found for me. And by the way, I gave that a 4 out of 5 stars on my Goodreads. Now moving on to the next book, I actually listened to it on audiobook. It is the Amityville Horror by Jay Anson. I felt like this was a really appropriate time to read this book, and I never read it before. I did give it a 4 out of 5 stars, which I feel like is a pretty high rating for this book because in hindsight and now looking back and all the revelations that have come out since this book was published, I think a lot of people understand that this is more like a fictional book. And originally when it was written, it was supposed to be like based off the real life and retellings of the Lutz experience living in a haunted house in Amityville, Long Island. So having said that, I basically read this book knowing full well, or at least reading it as a fictional book. So the story itself, I actually really enjoyed. I thought it was the perfect mix of kind of creepiness to it. There was some leading aspects where you were kind of confused as to what was going on, which left it open to interpretation, which I think is an excellent theme for haunted house-based books, because you're not really sure what is reality or what these people are experiencing. You're kind of getting it through their experience. And so this book was basically written as like the culmination of all of these people who had this experience or certain experiences with the Amityville house. So I didn't let the whole issue with the realness of the book affect me because I kind of already knew it's come out that it's not necessarily a true story, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I thought it was entertaining, and so I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I really liked it. The next book that I finished was The Indifferent Stars Above: The Harrowing Saga of a Donner Party Bride by Daniel James Brown. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars, and oof, this book was so good. If you have like a macabre or morbid fascination with the Donner Party, this is a really good book and gives you great insight to not only what actually happened in the factual things that occurred for the Donner Party to get into the situation that they were in, but it also paints a picture of what time in life was like at the time, because I think looking at it in a microscopic way, it's really easy to think like, oh my gosh, they made so many mistakes, why did they do that? But when you look at the whole picture of the events that led up to them being trapped in the Sierra Nevadas, and also just how life was and like the thought process going on behind it really helps you humanize the Donner Party as well as a lot of the other members of the party, because believe it or not, it was not just the Donner family that got trapped in these mountains. And in humanizing all the members of this party, it really makes you understand the decisions that they had to make in order to survive or like support the family members that they were with. It is so unbelievable that it almost feels like a fictional story, but it's amazing. I mean, the fact of the matter is that over 80 people joined this migration trail over to California, and about like 43 or 45 made it out alive. So they lost about half of their party through the treacherous trail that is coming to the west back in those days. So I would highly recommend if you guys are interested. I felt like it gave a lot of detail without being gratuitous with it. I loved it. I was super entertained, and this is exactly why I love nonfiction books, is this book itself. The last book that I just finished yesterday, and that is World War Z: An Oral History of the Zombie War. I gave it 3.5 stars out of 5 stars, and I don't know what I was really expecting. I was just looking for like a shorter read and something that was entertaining, and this one was really, really interesting because it's essentially told from the perspective of all of these different countries or people from different countries, from civilian to militaristic type of positions, basically how the world got through it and people reflecting on getting to that point. So it's really good. It really wasn't anything like the movie from what I remember, because I have actually seen the movie. What I really liked about this book is that essentially the antagonist of this book cannot be defeated by traditional means that you would use in other wartime efforts, or when you have to like militarize efforts against a certain force in order to like save the world. So it was interesting to hear the different perspectives, because I really feel like it gave you insight as to how different countries would deal with different aspects of something like a zombie apocalyptic invasion. Again, I thought it was entertaining and gave you a little bit of perspective as to maybe what you would do if you were ever in a situation like that. I might be the give up type. Anyways, guys, so that is my monthly wrap up for what I read for October. It's a little bit shorter because I feel like I was running around for the month of October. It was my birthday, holidays, I got engaged. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys read for the month of October, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.